Hey, can you guys imagine if you were training for the pipeline where you would go to get some equipment? Like you don't even know what to get. Just know that there's going to be swimming, knot tying, that kind of stuff involved in it.
Well, it's really specific stuff too, right? Like you can't just get any rope. You can't just go to Walmart and get any fins. When I was training for the pipeline, you had to it was like an underground fight club. It was like I was doing a drug deal. I met a dude behind a building one time. He's like, "Hey man, you need some rocket fins." Like I just didn't have anywhere that I could go. Jared, is there anywhere that we could go? Maybe a whole bundle to get us started?
You mean like an Aspect War bundle from Attackleet? I mean,
now
you could go there.
You could go to Attackleet. You can get your entire Aspect War bundle. I heard they just got back into stock. I heard they can get there in as fast as 3 days. You can get yourself on your little path to being an Aspect War operator inside of business week. That's not too bad. You decide on Monday, you're training on Friday. That's pretty good.
Bob's your uncle and you're good to go. You get your high volume mass. You can also get rucks or the old Alice frames, and you can get body armor, anything you need, not just for Aspect War either. You could do it for Rangers, Green Berets, or even Navy SEALs and MARSOC. So go check them out.
Yeah. And that's Attackleet Fitness. So it's attack, ATACLETE.com. And that's attackleet.com. Go get your training gear today.
And also use One's Ready as the promo code.
For everybody that's just joining us, we're discussing who should do the intro. And the reason that Peaches has been doing most of the intros is because I bolo the crap out of them. I'm just not good at it. I go on a little rant, and there's no reason to do that. But we're here today on a beautiful summer morning. Congratulations on making it this far into the summer. And what is it, the 100 days of summer that we're always warned about? Like, if you survive that, then it's harder than surviving GWAT. Is that what they say?
GWAT. I've heard the GWAT part, but yeah.
Based on the number of emails I get about the critical days of summer, I'm assuming it's pretty dangerous, because that versus the briefings I got before my first deployment, I mean, there was a lot more concern about summer than Afghanistan. Just saying.
Well, dude, if you've ever been to something like, Crab Island or something like that, or, Lake Powell or Havasu, with all those boats running around and jet skis, like, I mean, that's probably a valid threat,
That's fair. That's fair. And sunburns, and what else is there?
Ooh.
People riding dirt bikes, and I don't know, what else do people do during the summer? I spend a lot of time in water just because it's like the surface of the sun here in San Antonio.
You guys have got some pretty cool little, kind of, I guess they're called watering holes or whatever out there in Texas.
We're talking about lakes or bars? I'm confused.
Well, there's definitely bars, but there's some really, I mean, and it's like off the highway. It's little river tributaries and stuff like that. I've seen.
Yeah,
I mean,
lots of rivers.
You
lakes.
just be driving around, and all of a sudden you're going across a bridge, and on the other side of the bridge there's a bunch of cars, and then you can get a peek, and there's just a ton of people in a pretty cool watering hole right off the river.
Yeah, it's weird growing up outside of Texas and then coming here, as an adult, because I grew up watching John Wayne Westerns, right? And so all I think about is Texas. It's like, you think of El Paso, you think of the tumbleweeds and the high desert and all that other stuff. And you come down here and you're like, oh, like it's kind of like that, but also water everywhere and super humid and hot. And it's a cool mixture of all those things. Is this what we're talking about today, Texas? Because I love talking about Texas.
No, I was wondering. I was like, I was no kidding. I was trying to think of I know we had already established what we were going to talk about, and I already forgot about it.
When I tell people to come to Texas, it's probably pretty bad advice, and I think that's what we're going to talk about today. Is people giving advice, where bad advice comes from, and then how to sift through it and take advice in as your own and mold it to your personal needs, and goals and all that other stuff. So let's start with Peaches. What's the worst piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
Oh man, there's probably been lots of them, and to no kidding, boil it down to one, that would be difficult. I think probably the worst piece of advice that I've gotten, before, when I was in high school or before the pipeline, and I guess it wouldn't even be advice. It would be, hey, you're not going to make it.
Right.
I mean, I was told that a lot, actually. But I guess that's not really advice.
It's like the anti-advice. They just skip the advice and go straight to you suck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing. So about advice is you'll see it, especially now on, whether it's Reddit or Discord or even in comments of stuff, you'll see a lot of people's personal opinions of what they are thinking things should be, and it doesn't end up being that way, or maybe it's just poor advice, or maybe they've internalized something and thought about something so much in their head that it actually makes sense. And then when you say it out loud to somebody else, they're kind of like, "What? That makes zero sense. Like, why would you do that?" It's kind of like the practicing being in pain, right?
Right.
It's not really. I mean, you can practice being in pain, but you're just providing yourself more pain. And by pain, I mean like doing things that suck, kind of thing. And I know that we've talked about this, and there's plenty of other podcasts and stuff like that talk about it. And I don't mean putting yourself through difficult situations and stuff like that. That's not what I mean. Like doing a hell night or whatever with some of these companies that do it. Like, hey, right on. I get it, because you want to test yourself. Doing Spartan races, Tough Mudder and stuff like that. Like that's just fun, and you're testing yourself. But purposely, I'm trying to think of it. Just doing things that are painful, like I don't know what you really get out of it.
Right. Well, I mean, you're a goal oriented person, right, or something, and you have to have a purpose for doing things. But I was thinking about the advice too, and I remember some of the discussions we would have when I was at the selection course amongst cadre, and how these things go. Like, you get done with the session, we all end up back in the office for lunch or whatever, and someone brings up a subject, and no one fights with us more than we fight with us. But one of the recurring themes was, one of the guys was like, I think everybody, when they turn 18, should have to join the military. And I was like, I think that's a terrible idea, but I know where that's coming from. He's coming from a place where, when he joined, maybe his life was not perfect. He wasn't in the best place. And then he looks at where he is now, and he kind of attributes all that to the military. So in his mind, like, it's a good idea for everybody because it worked for him. It's going to work for everybody, right? So like that taking something that works for you, that was incredibly positive, and then trying to tell everybody else that this would fix all their problems, which are not the same problems as your problems, I think is one of the places where I don't want to say bad advice, but advice that maybe doesn't apply very well comes from.
The conscript model, I could argue for both on there, because I think there's goodness in it, in the way that some kind of national service. You even if it's just 2 years, hey, you have skin in the game. You've actually served your country. You've earned the right to criticize it or whatever. At the same time, though, as somebody who's in, I don't necessarily want every single person in there, especially if they feel like, oh, I've got to be here. Like, I have no choice. Just let me just get through these 2 years and then I'll be done. Like, I don't really want that either. So like, I could argue for both sides of it, or not argue for both sides of it, but I can appreciate the goods and bads on both sides of the aisle on that one.
Yeah. Well, but I think we tend to look at the positives for ourselves, right? And if I don't want to join the Air Force, or if I don't have a reason to, or join the military and do all these other things, like you said, it's not going to be a positive experience for somebody else. And so, like, I think we come at it from like, we look at things in rose-colored glasses and look at how far we've come in life since we joined. And it's like, yeah, it would be good. And I care about having skin in the game, and I care about having something to back up my opinions and being informed on these things. And yeah, I feel like I've earned those things, but that's not what everybody's looking for, and it's just not going to be positive. But like, it's super easy to take something, a positive experience for yourself, and to look at somebody else and be like, you should definitely do this. Like, how many times has someone done that? Like, I did this thing and it was really good. Like, I got a doctorate. You should do that. And I'm over here like, dude, I hate sitting in classrooms. Like, you know, and yeah.
Oh man. Maybe in an unpopular opinion, but like, I don't agree with everybody going to college. I don't. And I know, but like, it's not for everybody, and everybody shouldn't have to go get a degree. We shouldn't be pushing people. I mean, maybe some people need to be pushed, but like some of the smartest people in the world are your electricians, your plumbers, your mechanics. I mean, these are people that are handed a problem or called out for a problem, have to diagnose the problem solve it, and then fix it. And these are trades that are never going to go away and are high paying jobs. And at least my generation has, I don't know if it's my generation or it would be like my parents' generation, have seemingly looked down on those folks. And it's wrong. I remember, I think I brought this up before, but I was in high school and I ran into the principal of the high school, and he was a doctor. He was kind of a smug prick, but he, he was asking people what they're doing when they graduate. And I said, well, I'm joining the Air Force. And he said, well, why would you do that? Why aren't you going to college? I don't want to go to college. And he was just really, pompous and just kind of like, how could you not want to go to college? I'm like, well, I can only imagine how terrible it would have been. Now, college life would have been fun. The academic side of it, I had no business doing that. And it's not, I mean, I'm a dumbass too, but it's not because of that. It's just because I'm not the type of person that is really good at sitting in class like that. I need to go outside. I need to do stuff. I need to be moving around. So I think that if we're talking about advice, forcing or saying you got to go to college, you got to go do this, might be bad advice for some people.
Yeah, no, that's a great example too. Because when did that happen? Where everybody was like, "Oh, everyone needs to go to college." Like, when did and obviously, I think we can look back now and say that was terrible. That was awful advice for an entire country of people.
How about that debt?
Yeah, like, you need to forgive my student loans, and I'm over here like, why? I don't want to pay your loans off. But it comes from a place of goodness, right? So, like, I think one of the problems though is you understand who you are, right? Even as 16, 17-year-old Peaches was like, that's not my jam. But I think other people, if you don't spend enough time getting to know who you are, like, it's easy to take that advice, like, it's easy to if you look a certain way and someone's like, oh, you should go be a PJ, but do you want to? You know what I mean? Like, it's not for everybody. It's like, oh, like this guy in the gym, like, oh my goodness, like you should go try out for special warfare, X, Y, and Z. And I've done the same thing to people. I've seen people at the track or whatever, and I'm like, hey man, you want to come on over? It seems like something you'd be into. And I'll never forget one guy I knew. He was like a marathon runner and really good at, fitness all the way around, well-rounded dude. And it was really kind of refreshing because I was like, hey man, you want to come over to my side of the house? And he's just like, nah, I'm good. I've got no interest in that. And I was just like, okay, like he knows who he is. So like, this is bad advice for him to come do what I do, but I'm rambling now.
Well, you're not giving them, I don't think you're giving advice. I think you're offering up alternative solution, maybe not solutions because it wasn't necessarily a problem, but you're just alternate avenues for him to consider, and I think that's valid. And I think you should. I mean, I was, at CrossFit Apollo the other day and same thing. I'm looking at this dude that is demolishing the entire class every single time. And he just, like, he doesn't feel pain. He's just a machine. And I'm like, man, have you thought about doing this? And he's like, oh, I'm an Intel dude. Like, okay. Like, yeah. So,
All right.
it was just, but
Yeah, but there's
I
that
don't
line,
know.
right? Like, because you're not going to go to someone and be like, you know what you should do? And I think sometimes that's how people talk to other people. And I don't think
Yes.
we're like that. But like I've been talked to that way. Like you should do this. You should do this. Like, and but I don't know. Like it's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way when people come at me like that and be like, "Oh, you should do this." I'm like, shouldn't we have a discussion about it and decide like, is that good for me, or what did it do for you, and why are you so excited about this? I don't know. It's always been a weird thing.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing that just that, whether it's that tone or that word, that verbiage is like, you should be doing this. You should do this. And it's like, immediately I'm switching off. Like,
Yep.
oh, okay. Beat it. Could be some amazing advice, but using the correct kind of tone, using the correct verbiage, will change that conversation completely.
Yeah.
That's why, like, it's weird in the kind of position that we're, I guess. Well, yeah, actually, apart from the podcast, like, look at the positions that we're in right now. I mean, I feel like I'm giving advice all the time, or at least counsel all the time, and I get people that come to me and like, hey, how do I promote, or how do I make my military history or my package, look better? And I'm like, well, it's tough for me because I did not follow a traditional Air Force path at all.
Yeah.
I mean, at all. And I promoted. I don't know how, but I did. And it wasn't for me like really, really trying. It's just that I finagled my way into positions that I thought were valuable and that I thought I could do the country and the community a whole lot of good. Excuse me. And it just worked out. So it's weird giving people advice and counsel on, hey, well, as I'm looking at your records, like, okay, I see this, but I don't know if that's the right answer to get you promoted or help your history look better. But it's weird. It's a weird place to be right now.
I think one of the problems with getting older, and I think one of the reasons that like a 21-year-old would get frustrated with me with cause is there's always so many variables. And like as you move up and you go through these experiences, and I'm a lot like you, like I'm not a box checker. I'm not trying to do all these things just to make rank or any of these other things. But like I see a lot of variables out there. So when someone's like, like, how do I do this? I'm like, well, like, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to get there, but like I'll go into Discord and I see these younger folks talking and it's like, you shouldn't do that. That program is garbage. You should be doing this program, like, and I love the passion, but like when the world is so black and white to you, and that there can be a lot of goodness in that when you're younger, like, cause you're just driven and like, this is the way and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of good stuff comes out of that. But like, I can't look at that situation and be like, no, like this is the only solution. There's so many solutions to every problem set. So like, yeah, when someone hits us up, they're like, what should I do to become a better runner? I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, what's your body type? What's your background? What's your current run? Like you could lift weights to become a better runner in a certain situation. So like, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, and you gotta think you're taking advice, and I realize like you're also, for the folks out there, you're listening to this, so we're at times giving advice too. So you need to take that with a grain of salt. You also need to, same with everybody else in Discord, Reddit, and comment section or other DMs, like whatever. Take it for a grain of salt. So there's probably good nuggets in there that you can take and use, but everybody's different. Everybody's at a different point in their life, different physicality, different mindset. So someone else's advice may not work for you, and that's okay. And sometimes advice is dated. That's kind of the whole purpose of this thing was to give out information and current and relevant information. You know, we do the best we can, but sometimes it changes so quickly that, you know, some of our information is dated. It's the reality of it. It's tough to maintain that relevancy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the reasons that I don't know, I like to focus on mindset a lot, because that's one of those things that shouldn't change, that mindset elasticity and you know, I don't even like to say growth mindset anymore. I don't know. I had this epiphany the other day where I was like, I want to start calling it build mindset instead of growth, because growth seems like organic, where build is like a very deliberate thing that you do. And I don't know why that it makes more sense in my head when I say the build mindset, but you know what I mean? Like, because giving specific advice to people out there for very specific things, if we don't have a long conversation about it, then I don't think I'm giving very good advice. And what you were saying earlier about being like in a leadership position too, all my favorite supervisors are people that have come to me and been like, hey, like, where are we? What do you want to do? And like, as I walk them down the path, there have been things that I'm like, I don't want to do that. And they're like, hey, moron, if you do this, these are the doors that open up like that you can't see, you know? And like, I've gotten some really good advice that way, but it started off with a discussion instead of like, hey, Trent, you need to knock out your bachelor's degree today, you know, so that you can be a master sergeant or chief someday, or a commission or whatever else that we think would be positive for you. You have that discussion and you walk through it. And that's where I've gotten the best advice is as we go through those things, like they can show me how to get to where I want to be, and then open up those doors so I can see what's behind them because of their experience. So, yeah, but that they're not trying to lead me down the same path that they went down. You know what I mean? Like, they're not like, you should be just like me and blah, blah, blah. And it's like with leadership advice too. I've had lots of different leaders that do it a lot of different ways, you know, like some of my favorite leaders, I would never lead like them. Like, I'm not, you know, and one of the reasons is I'm not like 6'4" muscle bound dude that can just walk into a room and start telling people what to do and they listen. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not who I am. I'm a collaborative person, and you know, a little self-deprecating, but like, it doesn't mean that I think that they're a bad leader, but like, they wouldn't look at me and be like, you should do what I do. Or if they did, I'd be like, that's the dumbest advice I've ever heard, because I'm not you. So,
but I mean, the point you make though is that's why there's at least hundreds, if not thousands of leadership books. That some of the principles that they talk about in there are the same. Many of them are different because there's so many different ways to lead people and talk to people and deal with people. And you know, I've made, whether it's a post or reel on, hey, everybody needs to be networking. But in reality, like, that's just who I am because I'm a social butterfly. Like, if Trent is an introvert, maybe that would wear you out. Like, I know my wife, she's an inherent introvert, which, you know, we are polar opposites. Can she, step out of her comfort zone and, you know, be talkative and be in a very social environment? Of course she can. And she thrives in it. You know, people are attracted to her, but it wears her out for days afterwards, you know? So, you know, for me to come out there, that may be really good advice for some people, maybe poor advice for others, but it's coming from a good place, which doesn't necessarily make it right. But, to me, networking is extremely important. I don't know. Rambling again.
No, it's but like it's just the reality, right? Like, cause I tend to make friends with people more like you to do the networking for me. You know what I
do
mean?
It for you. You've been manipulating me this entire time.
No, but like, it's just the way that my world has worked out, you know, like I know a few people, and I don't have like this huge, you know, network of friends, but like all the people that I seem to like be friends with are more like, you know, like they're the social butterflies. That's how I get my connections and all the other stuff. But like, man, I'm not like you. Like, if people know me, it's because they've come in direct contact with me, not because I'm out there networking and doing all this other stuff. But I mean, it works out. It is what it is.
Yeah. That's, you know, I want to make sure that I get this out there. because I don't know if it'll organically come up in conversation, but it's something I've been thinking about and something that's really important. And as I start to kind of run into people that, on Nellis, right? Just taking Nellis, for example, there are 3 combat controllers. Yeah, because one just left. So there's 3 combat controllers, and there's about to be only 2 on all of Nellis, which is, 2 Scarlet Berets walking around. Now there's a handful of PJs or a bunch of PJs, but they're kind of in a different area, so people don't really see them very much. But like our Scarlet Beret, like all the way down the street, you could see us, and so we stand out, and people come up to us all the time. And what I mean is not the podcast, but like just because they see the beret, they want to know what it is. I was just asked yesterday, hey, like what is that? Because yes, there are people in the Air Force that don't know what we do, and I'm talking about senior NCOs that have been in for 20 years, have never heard of us or know what we do. So, so we're ambassadors for special tactics and combat control and aspect war and all that kind of stuff. But people have a habit, and I'm guilty of it too, of looking up to people, like the actual person, and you shouldn't. You should be looking up to principles and ideas, because if you are looking up to a person, whether you're looking up to me or Trent or Aaron or whoever, we are going to let you down. Like we are not going to be the person that you expect us to be, because we are human. We have faults. I mean, the day that we rolled into town, into Vegas, I hit Walmart to do some grocery shopping with my daughter, and I ran into a dude that recognized me from the podcast. I've been driving for 2 days straight. I'm not on much sleep. I'm just like, I got to get this stuff for the house. And he stopped me, which I'm happy he stopped me. Like, yeah, great. But I knew that I did not represent myself the way that I would have wanted to, because I was just smoked. Like, and I would have loved to continue to talk to him, but it was like a, hey, great. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Later, dude, kind of thing. And I actually felt really bad about it later on after I got some sleep. Funny enough, I ran into him again, and represented myself better at that point. But it's just follow principles and ideas, not people, because I am going to disappoint the hell out of you. That's just the reality of it. So I know that's not advice, but I wanted to say that because that's been kind of weighing on me for a while. And I was going to make a reel about it, but I think this is better organic conversation. Yeah,
no. But like when you bring up the beret, first off, I totally agree about the principles and stuff. Like I can have friends that I disagree with. Like I don't support anybody, politicians or whatever, just no matter what. It's silly to me. But it's funny. Like yesterday, the TAC-P functional and I were having a conversation about the berets, and we were like, the beret isn't for everybody else, and it's not even for me. Like the beret is so that we feel pressure when we're in public to uphold the image of the community, right? Like every time you put it on, like you can't hide after you put that hat on, and like every time you put it on, like you want to look at your uniform, you want to check yourself out, like you can't be spilling out of your uniform and all other stuff. It's not there so like we can get recognition from people. It's there to keep us in line, and feel that community pressure. I think that's what it comes down to for us. That's where we landed.
So I hadn't thought of it like that in terms of it's for us to keep us in line. But that's a really good point. I'm very conscious of that when I step out the door of the office or around here, because not only am I representing, aspect war, I'm representing the Air Force, I'm representing the DoD, I'm representing my family, myself. Yeah. I'm a representation of my parents, right? Yep. Everything I'm representing, and we're human, so we judge. We try. I make an active or a conscious effort not to judge people. But I think there's inherent biases that happen. So you can't negate it completely, but you also have to appreciate that other people grow up in different circumstances than you, and that's why they have this mindset. That's why it's so important to have the long form conversation, because you can't, like, hey, reels are great on Instagram, because you got a minute to get information out, but like, you can't get nuanced information and nuanced conversation from a minute, right?
No,
it's just, you can't.
I mean,
So stop judging me out there when you see me with my beret and I'm spilling out my uniform, because you didn't even get a chance to talk to me.
I don't think we were talking about you.
Thinking that everybody should be 6'4". God.
Jeez, yeah, those guys. Well, I mean, you've met those guys. It's like, just be a leader like me, and it's like, dude, I can't. Anyway. I was gonna say something, and I forgot what it was. You got me off topic.
Well,
Gosh,
that's what happens to me regularly. So,
yeah,
welcome to my world.
I think the beret is just like that cherry on top, beret. Anyway, where you can't be the gray man, and so you have to represent. And then we messed up, and we started a podcast. So now I also have to think about if I'm embarrassing Peaches and Aaron when I go out in public, especially when I go on base, So it's like, if I go into the BX, I don't know, there's just that little added thing where it's like, okay, if someone recognizes me, I gotta be a good person. I gotta be nice. I can't just like ignore them. Especially
Dude,
once
you're
I put
the threat mez too.
Jeez,
like,
dude.
Lackland is a hotbed for everybody. Like, I just went swimming the other day, and apparently I was swimming in a lane next to two dudes that are trying to cross train. So they hit me up, and I'm gonna have them stop by the office later on this month. But like, and that's Nellis. Like, I don't know how many people at Nellis are wanting to cross train or anything like that, So, but yeah, you were in a hot zone.
I will say that it's funny though, because when you were here, students like to talk to you, and I don't know. I think I'm a pretty nice guy, but I don't think I come across as that nice all the time on the podcast, because way more people are comfortable walking up to you and talking to you. We're like,
I'm the jolly fat guy.
I'll see students that I know who I am, like, and you can hear them talking, but like, not very often will they walk up to me, and maybe I just come across as a giant, prick. But like, when you were there, they're like, "Oh, Chief Peaches," and I'm just like, and to be fair, I did just stand there and stare at them. So there's probably a reason.
Like, oh, Trent's angry.
I'm just not the social butterfly, guys. Like, it's not a natural thing for me.
Well, hey, you apologize very well.
I do. Dude, it's funny. I think I told you on text, I had a friend of mine, a combat controller, who only watched a portion of that video, reach out to me. He's like, dude, what are you apologizing for? Blah, blah, blah. Like, he went after me. Like, one of my and this, just so everybody knows, like, this is how friends talk to each other. Like, and I his second text was like, fix yourself. And I thought it was a good time. I was like, bro, watch the whole thing, please.
Well, we've told each other to fix ourselves all the time. Like,
We mostly tell Aaron. Yeah.
What's that?
We mostly tell Aaron, fix yourself.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
And Aaron is also like, yeah, okay, all right.
He takes it way too well. Yeah.
I'll do better. I'll be better.
Dude. Aaron works his butt off. Like, I don't know if anyway, he takes it really well when I tell him to fix himself, even though that's not what I'm saying. Trying to think, where else does I keep going back to the topic, because there was a couple of other things I want to talk about, and I know we've talked about it before, but like fear, right? And when you get advice from someone that is like your family or that really cares about you, and then the fear-based advice, I think is one of the most dangerous things.
Can you give me an example of fear-based advice? I'm just trying to.
Oh, just hey, mom, dad, I'm going to go do this job. Like, what do they do in that job? Oh, we drop bombs and we jump out of planes and we go into combat and all that other stuff. And it's like, well,
Oh, okay.
why can't you go be a lawyer type advice, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I spoke to somebody who was at the academy or going to the academy, or maybe they were ROTC, and their dad was a like some kind of pilot, pointy nose pilot, and he wanted to go be a stow or crow or whatever it was, and he was talking him out of it, saying, no, you don't want to go do that. And I've also spoken to some folks that wanted to enlist, already had a degree and wanted to go enlisted, and had parents that were like, well, what, you know, you already have a degree, why don't you go be an officer, you know, kind of thing. And you know, that's honorable. Like, hey, go be an officer, like whatever, you're still serving your country. But at the same time, you know, maybe the right move is, let me go enlisted, whether I have a degree or not. Let me go enlisted. Let me become a expert tactician, technical expert in my craft. And then after 8, 10, 12 years or whatever, then go officer. I mean, that is an option that is often overlooked by new recruits. You see it all the time. We get some of our dudes go officer all the time after they get a couple deployments, after they become, you know, they get all their advanced quals, and they feel like okay, I've done this. I've got a good enough grasp on the community and where I would like to see it go. So now I'm going to go the officer route and build up that way and do great things. So yeah, the fear-based stuff, like at least like that from parents. And I get it. They've got their kids' best interest in mind, but maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have their best interest in mind, because maybe you're trying to impart on them what ideas you have instead of them actually getting out there and doing what they want to do. And you also have to allow them to make mistakes. Like maybe they go in enlisted and they're like, oh boy, okay. But then you get to, as a parent, then you get to hear, hey, you were right.
Yeah. Well, I think as a parent, it's funny because when I talk to other people's kids, right, and we talk about the career fields and all that, I tend to think about the positives. But if I look at my own son and think about him joining one of these communities, it's a lot harder for me to be like, oh, like, yeah, of course, like all these positives. And I'm like, what could go wrong? You know, like it's just a different thing. So I'm not like trying to come down on parents or anybody or spouses that are like, hey, like that have legitimate concerns and are worried about people getting into this line of work, because it is dangerous. But, you know, it's not based on understanding the other person's motivation or any of that other stuff, like the whole money and degree thing. We were at a graduation the other day, and one of the guys I was with was like, hey, how many of you guys have degrees? And I think almost every hand in the room went up. You know, it wasn't a room full of stows, but most of them had degrees. And what are you looking for? You know, like to me, I think being an enlisted person and learning the craft and actually going to get to do stuff, and I think it's a lot more fun. You know, like I think we have a lot more fun than the officers. Like I don't know what the officers do in their special clubs and all that other stuff. Maybe it's awesome.
You're just perpetuating the idea that Trent hates officers, because you know that's out there, right?
Well, it'd be difficult for me to hate officers considering my living situation. But I just think we have more fun. Like officers, like it's a lot of responsibility, you know, like all these other things that they have to worry about. I'm an enlisted guy. Like I remember even, you know, like you hit that like 10, 12 year mark or 8 to 12 year mark. And there's that option where it's like, hey, I know my job. I'm pretty good at my job. Like if I just knock out the rest of this degree and commission, it's not a bridge too far for most people. And I was just like, nah, dog, I'm going to stick this out. We're having way too much fun over here.
Yeah. There's a different mentality. Obviously there's different mentality, but there is part of it that, you know, officers have the authorities. They are granted the authorities to make the decisions on things, whereas enlisted have certain authorities, but not necessarily the authorities to like be the final stamp on something. But at the same time, like you're still a non-commissioned officer, so you still have certain rights and authorities that are granted to you as an NCO or senior NCO. So to think that, and I know this is not what you're saying, but like just to be clear for the folks out there listening, like just because you say, "Oh well, I'm enlisted," means I don't make decisions. That is completely wrong. It's just there are certain things that like my commander can sign and approve, and I can't because I'm not granted those authorities. That doesn't mean that he is also not asking me for counsel or for my advice, you know, because maybe I have experienced something. I mean, this just happened yesterday. You know, he brought me in, asked for my advice on something. I gave it to him, like, you know, and I don't know. I walked out of the room, but like, you know, I'm assuming he followed it. He definitely listened and taken it on. So, you know, but what he was working on, by, you know, the DoD regulation, I'm not allowed to, you know, sign off on or execute that. He is granted those authorities to do that, but I still have a say in it. So it's just, it's different. And for people out there, I mean, like the whole officer enlisted dynamic is unusual, and it changes for every career field that you go into. I mean, it really does. Like I'd like, you know, right, wrong, or different, I like to think that in the aspect war, like we are probably more closely aligned in terms of officer enlisted than, say, maybe maintainers or your security forces or I don't know, something like that. You know, public affairs or something. You know, I think that we are closer in aspect war than other career fields.
Well, it's more like I mean, I've talked to aircrew folks. Oh, first off, my wife stuck her head through the door and asked me why I hate her. It was pretty funny. She listened.
She's an officer.
Yeah, she was like apparently she could hear what I was saying. But like I've spoken to aircrew folks that are like, you know, 6 or 7 people on the crew or whatever, and ask them what it's like, and I think it's similar because they're all in the same boat. You know, if that plane goes down, no one cares what's on your shoulder. Like you all gonna die. So like I think those situations where it's a smaller team, you know, the danger level is higher. You have to rely on each other. You don't have that. It just it wouldn't make sense to have a huge separation between the people. You know, like as long as everybody's super professional. And I don't think we have a lot of problems with people not doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done. You know, so. You know, there's what we've talked about before, like during the mission planning process, that's when we bring up our opinions and all this other stuff. But like once you get out there, if the person that outranks you, whether it's an officer or your senior NCO or whoever says go, you know, you just go. So like I think there's a professionalism level, an understanding level, and just the way that we do business that makes it a little bit different. But
yeah, nope, I agree. You know, and I think you're kind of going the direction of air crew. You know, if say you have a C-17 or C-130 crew, you know, you've got several officers, and then you've got enlisted that are load masters in the back. You know, or a KC-135, you know, refueling crew. You got officers, and then you got some boom operators. I mean, I can keep going. You have 60 pilots, you know, and then you have, you know, gunners or SMAs. Like, you know, it's just, they are crew. They are an entity, and every member of that crew has a vote and has a voice, and anybody could say, you know, knock it off for safety, or, you know, and they all rely on each other. So they call it, you know, this is for the audience, not for you, but they call it crew resource management, you know.
Tell me more.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked, actually. You know, so they have, you know, everybody gets a vote on it. It's not just one officer or one individual saying, hey, this is what we're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know how we got on the officer enlisted thing, but like I will
either.
say too, like as an enlisted person, one of the things I found is the better you are at your job, the more of a voice that you have. So like it's easy as like an A1C to look around and to blame other people for the way things are and all this other jazz. But you don't have to be in very long to become really good at what you do and to have your voice be heard, you know, and people are going to start listening once you become that expert. And so the key is to work hard and be really good at what you're doing. And it's amazing how much leeway and how much wider that road gets and what you're able to do just by being good at anything.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And, you know, the weapons school has kind of 3 words that they follow. It's humble. So you got to be humble, you know, and humble is not self-deprecation or anything like that. It is, you know, talking and thinking about yourself less. Doesn't mean that I just go, oh, well, I'm terrible at this. It's like, no, I can acknowledge that I'm really good at this thing. It's just that I'm not going to talk about it. You know, I'm not going to shout it from the roof. So humble, then you have approachable. So you got to be somebody who is actually approachable, that people want to come and talk to, or people want to come to you with, you know, questions, advice, or whatever. And then credible. So you got to be credible. And that's kind of where you're talking about, is like, if you are that technical expert or that tactician expert that, man, you just have your stuff together, like, man, people are going to naturally come to you and go like, well, like, how do I do this? Or how can I be better at this? So, yeah.
Well, I think that goes into giving advice, right? You know, like, so if someone comes to you and is like, hey man, like, how do I do this? And you say, well, this is how I do it. And they want to have a discussion about how it could be done better and understand the why and the inner workings. Like, I think that's when I was thinking about this morning, the whole advice thing, like that's my problem, is when people just like give blanket advice without, I'm a person that needs to understand why with everything and the motivation of the person that I'm getting the advice from and all these other things. Because if you don't break things down like that, then you're not going to be able to integrate it into who you are and where you're going and to build on that, you know, like if you build your decisions based on stuff that you don't understand, I don't know, it's not going to work. At least for me, it wouldn't work.
Yeah. And the simplest way I could like example anyway that I give is when the whole debate about whether to pay for programming or not, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a bunch of companies out there, a bunch of them that provide paid programming. There's also a bunch that are online that are free, you know. If and there's the debate, you know, you see people all the time. You don't need to pay for a program. You don't, you know, maybe they don't, right?
Yeah.
But maybe you have a background in weight training or soccer, or maybe you have a background in athletics, you know, so you are already working from a general purpose knowledge base that you don't need paid programming, or you don't need somebody to tailor a program to you. Maybe you're able to look at a free program that's just boom, there it is. And you're able to go, okay, well, I need to increase this or decrease this, and I'm able to listen to my body. Other people, though, don't have the same background as you. So maybe a tailored program that is paid for them, for their current fitness level and what their goals are, maybe that is the right answer for them. So instead of steering them wrong and then they go look at a free program and injure themselves or don't get where they need to be in time for their departure or whatever their goals are, like, you've just hurt them. So instead of saying, hey, there's no need for it, and then that's just it.
Yeah.
You're not helping. And again, this is not me saying you got to go out and get a paid program or a free program. It's just everybody's different, and different options work better for different people. And you can't assume that, I mean, in AFSPEC War, at our operational units and at a pipeline, we have coaches that design programs specifically for us. Does that mean we don't know what the hell we're doing?
Well, and does everybody stick to that program? Perfect.
No.
What?
Some people do. I like when I was at the 22nd, some of the program I did from Dan, some of it I didn't because I had different goals, you know. At this point, I'm thinking longevity and just maintaining. I'm not trying to get any kind of PRs right now, you know?
Yep. No, but there's different levels of investment, right? And to think if people just all were the same and didn't need personal trainers and all the other stuff, like it's less about the programming and more about someone holding you responsible and being invested in the process. And some people need that, and some people don't. But you find investment in a lot of different ways. Like when we get, messages and emails and everything else like that, asking for advice and telling us that they're shipping, right? That's like, they're kind of setting up that thing like, hey, I'm shipping today. I'll let you know when I get through, like the telling people what you're going to do right before you go do it, or making sure that you're building that investment, not just in yourself, but with other people, or finding a backstop to stop you from not doing something. Or to do something, and everybody has different levels that they need that from, like I personally don't enjoy having a coach all the time. It's not my favorite thing. Like I like to do my own thing. I don't know if that comes across where I'm kind of like I just do what I want type of person. But yeah, but like it's difficult to go out there and to tell people what to do or what not to do. And I think the only good advice that I've ever given is you need to get to know yourself and figure out what you want to do, and to not be doing stuff for other people. I think that's why I harp on mindset and self-motivation, intrinsic motivation, and all that other stuff so much. And it's like, and how do you get there? Like you do difficult things. Like I'm not going to recommend a program or workouts that are difficult for you to go do. But like that's one of the steps to get to know yourself, or spending time alone, or reading books, or whatever else, taking nature walks and blah, 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 hanging out with your crystals in your room and talking about Gaia or whatever, Gaia. However you get to know who you are. I can't do it without hippie stuff. I have to do hippie stuff.
You lost me on that last part, but because I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
The people that are into crystals. I don't know. It's weird. It's a thing.
It's not weird. It's not weird at all.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's weird. I'm still judgy. Just because I understand how this stuff works doesn't mean that I'm not going to judge people for their crystals. I'm still going to judge them. Just like, like I can see an overweight person in uniform, and I don't not like that person, but I'm they should probably head to the gym.
There's lots of reasons why that person should head to the gym. Lots of reasons.
That's part of the credible part, right? If you show up and you start giving people advice and you're not, following any of that advice, which is why I don't give a lot of like powerlifting advice, right? So,
it's a definitely a credibility thing. It's also you should just be healthier. At the same time, talking about you're being an ambassador for your whatever, your community, your family, your career field, your military service, whatever. So I don't know. You know who Derek White is, right?
Maybe. Probably not this morning. I don't.
He is he is a single leg amputee. Was in the 82nd Airborne, like incredible shape. I think he did the adaptive athlete for the CrossFit Games or something like that. He's part of like Jared Taylor's kind of crew that he has running around. I don't know him, but he I remember he was talking, or I saw a video about it or something, and he was talking about how. Why is it that so many people look up to people that are physically fit? And I thought about that. And he actually goes into a good diatribe about it, or a rant, if you will. But it just shows, to me, it just shows discipline, and it shows organization, and I'm sure if you go to their, some of these people that are extremely fit, if you go to their bedroom or something like that, like their house is an absolute wreck. I mean, we've all seen it. People are taking selfies in the mirror, trying to make themselves look good, and their backgrounds, like their room is a wreck. There's a pile of clothes, so there is some facade there, right? But people do tend to look up to people inherently that are physically fit or put together. Right, wrong, or indifferent. And like I said, he articulated a lot better than I did, but it was a pretty cool rant, and I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. But for whatever that's worth, I don't even know how I started talking about that, but yeah.
But I think that leads into the big point I wanted to make here about advice is you need to be in a place where you're comfortable enough taking, like you said, parts of people and their advice and in motivation and taking the positives and cobbling it together into your own advice for yourself, right? Like that fitness person that their house is a disaster. Like, cool. Like their house is a disaster. Don't take, house cleaning advice from them, but fitness advice or motivation from them for their fitness. You know what I mean? And then look elsewhere for advice and motivation in other areas. But make it your own. And I think that's the only way to really move forward. So like it kind of starts with you figuring out what is worth something, and what that credible advice for you is, and understanding where you're trying to go and who you are. And then I think that's a pretty good recipe for success.
I'd agree. Seems like a good place to call it.
Let's wrap it up. Hey, if you haven't left a review on iTunes, is it iTunes, Apple iTunes podcast lately?
Yeah, iTunes, you can leave a stars and an actual review, and then Spotify, all you can do right now is leave some stars.
All right. Well, Aaron has been feeling a little left out. No one's been leaving reviews, making fun of him lately. So if you guys could do him a favor for Aaron's mental health, go on there, let him know that his hair is not that great, and that, PJs are just people with hero complexes. That's what you need to let him know. Otherwise, we appreciate everybody listening and appreciate all the support, and train hard, and we'll catch you next time.
Later.